Good morning, Mr. Amphy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Good,
Doing
good,
well.
good. That's good to hear. First and foremost, will you introduce yourself to the listening audience?
My name is Antonio Amphy. On YouTube, I go by Unapologetically Black, 42. Uh, the reason I go by that name for a specific reason. Um, One of the reasons is that as Black men, a lot of times we have to humble who we is to make other people feel comfortable or be less than who we is.
Right, right.
So my thing is for us to be unapologetically who we is. So I call myself that for that reason.
Makes sense to me. Makes sense to me. Okay, well, tell them a little more about your background and why you feel the need to launch this podcast specifically.
I think the reason why I feel the need to launch this podcast is because of my background. I feel like I am the real authentic African American story in the inner city, right?
How so?
My father was murdered when I was 8, which is a common concept, a situation created in our community, right?
Right.
I was labeled as dyslexic when I was in the first or second grade, right? There was no specialties done or nothing done to specifically deal with that learning, what they considered a learning disability,
Right.
which just was a difference in learning.
Right.
Instead of cope with that, the system just washed me away. Like, oh, this person unlearnable. Let's just give them a learning. Let's just try to put them in LD. If he don't want to go in, if their parents don't let them go in LD, then we let them just suffer with what he going through, and we make no accommodations. You know,
and so that happens more often than not in our educational system.
And I realized it immediately when I went to MATC because I said I had dyslexia, and it automatically set aside certain times and things to deal with or cope with my dyslexia. So I said, they knew this in the second grade. None of this was ever done.
Right.
And so me still having a affinity to learn because my mother was so into education, right? So I persist to educate myself even though when I was incarcerated. So another reason for me, this platform is because my case is a form of showing that Black men don't have a right to defend their family or themselves.
Okay.
You know, so you have that, which I will further later explain. So we have the criminal system, which is basically the 13th Amendment reapplied. I've been through that system, recattle slaved, and I say that because I've been to CCA, a private prison.
Right.
So everything that America has thrown at us as Black people, I've had to suffer and go through. And I had to learn from those experiences.
Okay. All right. That's an amazing story. That is an amazing story. A lot of people don't know, and very few people hear about the changes, the mental struggles, and the emotional struggles, and the educational struggles that a lot of us go through. Because a lot of times we've been made to feel ashamed to talk about them, whereas you not only have embraced them, but you've grown from them. And that is an amazing thing in and of itself. So I think that's my hat's off to you.
I want to also add that because Black men, my case is an example that Black men don't have second chances. And I say that because I was released on parole March 8th, 2008. I've been revocated 3-4 times on parole. I don't have one criminal charge. I don't have a criminal arrest.
Yet you've been revocated
and
multiple times and reincarcerated, which actually hindered the growth of the business that the people are going to be made aware of that you
It
had
had
started right after you were released from being incarcerated.
not only hindered, it has actually caused the loss of various businesses.
Wow.
It has actually caused loss of various businesses, and it had not only have it have also the system is created so it also has restraints on it that while you through that system that prevents your growth, built-in mechanisms where truck driving, cargo shipping opportunities are solely dependent on how another individual feels about you, taking your life completely out of your control.
Wow.
And they have a system that continuously allows them to extend this, right? Regardless of whether any activity you done causes any harm to the community.
Wow. Amazing. I'm certain that people is going to very enjoy very much hearing more about your story and the importance of why your story is an echo of so many like stories, and I think it's very important that people get a chance to be you, the man, the individual, the brother who's gone through these struggles, and despite all the obstacles thrown at you, still surmounted them, still overcame them, still never backed down, never gave up. And that is amazing. And I believe that is one of the other reasons why you're doing this podcast, because it's another outgrowth of all those struggles to show that despite what you've been facing, what's been thrown at you, you're still a fighter. You're still giving it your all and then some, and it's always still about the people, about helping the people. And that goes into what you do when you sell, I believe you sell laundry detergent and you sell other common household products that a lot of us people in general use, but a lot of Black people especially use because, we're clean people. And why don't you tell the people a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Well, my for who I am and what I believe that as a people we have to begin to provide the necessities and things that we need for our own survival as much as possible, right? So what I do is I do what is called for as products, chemical products. I do what is called white labeling, right? I go to the main manufacturers, the same ones who make any of the main products, Tide, Gain, and I purchase the product in bulk, wholesale. Sometimes using the label, which would be an extra fee. Sometimes without the label, you have to name it yourselves. And we all familiar with this because we all buy store brand products.
Right.
So Amazon even have its own private labeling company. They private label various products that's made off their line. They do this same thing happens with Costco's and Walmart. All have private line and brand label products, right? So, and if you go out to the West Coast and you go to the beauty supply shops and you see all the beauty supply hair shops have their own hair care product, they're white labeling.
Okay, that's interesting. You just educated me, and I'm more than positive you educated the listening audience as well. That's just amazing. How long have you been doing this business?
I've been doing it for 10 years. I actually, when I looked at the numbers of as far as the Sun and laundry detergent, I really went into the research of it as far as saying like the number of households with laundry detergent, with washers and dryers, which in Wisconsin, which is in Milwaukee, is 422,000 households. So I'm looking at the side of the market and things of that nature, looking at what private labeling doing. So the purpose of it really was to get off into it, do white labeling initially, get off of manufacturing, and help create opportunities for other brothers and sisters. But we have a issue with support because the market is there. What we spend on the product is there, but we lack the understanding of circulating wealth within our own community. And so my objective is for us to figure out is to save money, right? And to learn how to reinvest that money back into your community. And by me being a Black entrepreneur, and I feel that all Black entrepreneurs should feel this obligation, you are required as much as possible to circulate that wealth back in your community. You know, and I deal in not to say you are not going to have difficulties dealing with other Black businesses, but it's crazy to me that you would go and complain to Walmart, giving them an opportunity to correct an issue, but you would just cut a Black business off. So
why do you think that is? Why do you think you individually and or collectively, why do you think Black people do that? Why is it that seems to be a common practice? Where do you think that came from?
that you know, this the thing with this, and it's difficult to say it. You know, don't nobody want to be left at the bottom by themselves.
Kind of like that misery loves company adage that people used a lot growing up.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we're basically bottom feeders. We're at the bottom economically. We're at the bottom, you know, and we striving to get more than the next one of us, or we're striving to get away from the rest of us.
And where do you think we got that practice from? Or where do you believe, based upon your self-imposed re-education process, where do you think that practice came from with us?
We was taught to value them. We was taught to value their communities, right? So therefore their community is perceived to be better. It's perceived because we don't understand that we have shaped communities. This is the problem. If you don't understand your history and you don't know about resurrection, the Reconstruction period, if you don't know about the communities we built, right, then you just looking at your current condition. I was taught you was enslaved, and then you look at your current condition. You see, so now everything is ours. I'm blaming everything is ours. It's everybody else's responsibility because I don't know my own capabilities. So my thing is understand our own capabilities, take accountability for our aspect, what we contribute to racism towards ourselves.
Wow, that's a powerful statement. So, based upon that, could you go a little further and explain to the people listening and watching you exactly why is it important that we as a people learn the importance of learning how to go back to being a community of one? Because you alluded to that there was times where we did that. So can you expound upon that a little bit more? Give us some examples of different communities that actually showcased and thrived.
Well, you have North Carolina, right, where during the time of slavery, slave hiring was prevalent. So when slavery ended, blacks had a lot of skills, and you also had the brother that created the peanut, George Carver. He also, when he learned planning, he also created schools, mobile schools, and went mobily to black communities and educated them on how to farm. So from 65 to 75, within 10 years, half of North Carolina black population owned land.
Wow.
So, and then you have to think Seneca Village in New York, 50, 60% home ownership. We talking 1800s. No other group of people had a high home ownership in America. And I believe this is because immediately after slavery, we knew to separate from them and their system. Because I believe I ask black people, or I ask people, period, what is London really known for? Producing. And most people can't say anything, and I tell them the Bank of London. They're known for financial debt. That's what they're known.
Mm.
So we have to understand as people, when we placed value in them and what they held, we devalued us. We devalued our skills, right? Our own worth ethic. So we lost the ability to build and produce. So therefore, when we did that, when we lost that far as being self-sufficient, focused on creating and building your own community, the further education, having control of the further education of your own children, right? So then you place yourself back at the mercy of someone who has already decided that I'm going to use your black skin to cast you as the bottom people.
Wow. Powerful. That is very powerful. And that makes sense because there's a growing number of voices speaking about the very thing you're talking about. A lot of the brothers on YouTube, and of course, Nation of Islam, Honorable Lewis Minister Farrakhan, and Brother Malcolm X, and Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and different people, and a couple newer brothers that's popped up on the scene that talk about it. Shout out to Umar Johnson, and Brother Tariq and Brother Islam. All of these different brothers who actually speak the same thing you do. you know. And there's a growing number of voices that's talking about this, and it seems like it's a resurgence type of thing. It kind of like a throwback to the '60s, and like Brother Fred Hampton and so forth. All these brothers that's coming out, and a lot of sisters as well, that's coming out and rallying the minds of our people, and trying to get everybody back on focus. It's like a refocus, and they've been talking about the same thing you talk about, the conditions of our people, and you give examples and whatnot. So the thing that I've discovered is that, like yourself, they all talk about, and you had actually mentioned this earlier, about like a relearning process, kind of like a rebirth, you know. And I find that interesting that is the common theme. Can you explain why relearning is so important for us to learn to go back to learning how to be a community of one?
I believe most powerful thing a person can possess is the perception of himself. And people said, like, man, why you think history is so important? And I said, if you lost in the forest, the first thing you do is retrace your footsteps. Right? So once I retrace my footsteps, I learn which direction: north, east, west, south. Right? Now, if you, as a man, right, it is required for you to leave a trail now for anybody else to be able to follow. Right? So when I retraced our footsteps, and I was in prison, so I had to say, how did I get here? And not just that first action, that last action that was the charge, but how did the condition created that got to that point? So the further back you go, and the more you understand politics and you see what's going on in the world, you understand that one group of people is treated one way and another group of people is treated another way. I'll give you an example. You have the crisis with Haiti. They came on horseback and chased the Haiti immigrants away. Now you look at how the Ukrainian immigrants was treated coming into America. They had camps, they had VIP passes. So you have to eventually realize that they choked this black man out for selling cigarettes. They kneeled on this black man's neck for 9 minutes. You have to understand that this is consistently happening in one group of people. So you have to understand that they've created a value in whiteness. So you have to create a value in your blackness. You have to value me as much as you value yourself. What they do to me, they will do to you.
All right. Just as, like I said, the same themes that was echoed back then. Like I said, there's a growing number of voices that just come back up doing the same thing that they was doing, and it seems like the number's even higher. And do it ever cross your mind that the ways or similar ways that they silence them voices, that the same thing that can happen will start happening? There would like be like a resurgence of that or something like that,
It's going to.
or that they manage to find different ways to do this to accomplish the same means.
It's going to happen. This is why I do what I do for a living. This is why I sell products to my community. This is why you're going to have a beneficiary for survival in life, right? Somebody, you're going to do business for somebody. You're going to have some way of generating the income or providing the money, right? For yourself, right? If you can't speak against people if they're your source of income, right?
In private, maybe, but not in public.
Right. So I want to speak up for me and my people. This is why I sell products to my people. Right? So they can try to silence me through various forms on the internet and stuff like that. Right? But what I'm doing is building a foundation. Right? This foundation is not just a podcast, it's interactive. I intend to grow what I'm doing to others to generate wealth, right? I intend to take the ideas that I talk about on here with a small group locally and implement them, right? So that we can, so that it could be duplicated. Because I think the difficulty we have is that we're going grandiose because we in a country where everything is big. So what people tell me all the time, you got to show them something, right? And I say, if I show you self-sufficiency, do you value it?
Wow.
So I show you I'm being self-sufficient every day. Do you value that? If you value that, I've shown you that. Let's duplicate that.
Very interesting. And a lot of people don't see that. And I believe that is why the number of voices have grown exponentially, because all of those voices realize there must be a relearning and a reawakening process, because we still suffer individually and collectively, and now the suffering, though it takes many forms, it still starts in the mind. They said they got rid of the physical shackles and then they put the mental shackles on us. Do you believe that that's still the case to this day?
Exactly. Listen, I heard a woman when I was locked up. She told another man. She told her brother, "Well, they can't be lazy. You're being lazy." I said, "Hold on." And this is the problem with us not even having our own media, right? And we start to reproject what other people say to us. We allow people said, I went to another country, kidnapped you, forced you over here to labor for me. And went to war and died to force you to do their work, can now label you as lazy. And then you will now pass that on to your children.
Wow. Generational trauma.
But you're passing on to your children, calling them lazy after you failed to instill work ethic in them.
Whoa.
Because you believed what somebody else told you about yourself.
Whoa. Powerful.
So that's why I feel that it's significant to speak to my people. I feel like, that them concepts right there, that alone, when I hear us repeat that, echo that, and you go to any factory and it's blacks on the floor and the white guy come out and be the manager, or you go and you notice that the white guys are the police officers that does nothing, sit on their butt all day and they shape like blobs, and you not paying attention to this, you not paying attention to the jobs they fight for or the jobs that they can sit around the most on. You're not paying attention to this.
And why do you think our people don't pay attention to that?
You've been programmed, conditioned to believe that you're supposed to labor for somebody else. You've been taught that. You've been programmed that. You went to school and was trained to do that. And so you're getting off program. Your life is not for your life. Black people don't believe black people have a right to be free. You have to understand, they was locking your children up for selling weed, which has no death rate. No death rate. Now they're legally selling it. It's majority white dispensaries, and you have no issue of how they were separating your families from this. You have no issue with that the same gas station they was locking your kids up from selling weed out of is now selling weed inside. You have no issue with this economic castration that happened to your children.
Wow.
You have no issue with the fact that you have a world that shows wealth to your children, to everybody else, and tell your kids not to touch.
Wow.
America is a museum for black people. Look, but don't touch. And you expect your kids to just accept that. You expect them to look at this grandiose life on television constantly and not to want a piece. And you have no options or nothing to give them.
That's deep. That's real deep. Yeah, that's really deep. So it is important, in your view, in your belief, that we, as a people, individually and collectively, should re-educate ourselves on some of the ways of how to unburden ourselves from the mental shackles that continue to bind us individually and collectively, and bind us to these individual as well as collective sufferings.
I think we need to re-gentrify our own communities. I think.
Explain that to the people. What is re-gentrification? Explain to them gentrification, and then explain to them the significance of why you say we need to re-gentrify our neighborhoods.
Well, gentrification is when another group of people come in, they find a distressed community, purchase it for the low, right? Get empowerment grants, tax offs, and tax write-offs, and they refurbish the community to their liking, to their suitings, right? And they sell us their old community at top dollar, right? Or they begin to rent it out to you, right, for a additional income at a high fee, right? So what I'm saying to you is that you need to do this, because with you separating, moving in different communities, what you have done is divided your interests. So you have divided your power, right?
Right.
So what I'm saying is you have to intensify your power. You have to shape the community. You have to come there, and economically you have to begin to look at things different yourself than the way. See, everything I believe in, people think, oh, you into business. I don't see business the same way Europeans would see business. I understand that business is a social endeavor as well as an individual endeavor. And so, and I say that meaning that the business should benefit the community as well, right? So this is the difference, how we operate and function as a people, different than their form of capitalism. We've always done trade. It ain't business and doing that is bad. It's how you do it. It's from a standpoint of greed. It's I do business from a standpoint where I want my customer satisfied. I want them to leave feeling benefited from doing business with me. And this is possible. So as Black people, we begin to move in our community. We recirculate our thinking, not as a thinking of I have to take from you for me to gain.
Right.
So, and this is why you have to understand that you have been taught to think less of yourselves. You devalue what other Black people are selling. I know this because I'm out here selling products to people.
Right.
So I know they devalue it directly because it comes from me. Right?
Right.
And you have to stop doing that. People, when you allow other people to create your value in you, then they're going to always have you less than them. You go out to the suburbs, you move in their communities, then they appraise your house for $200,000 less than their houses. Right?
Right.
Because your value is based off of what they see you as. Create your own value. You have to understand that you are still the burdens of America. Everything that happens in America is still financed off you. So since property taxes, since you are the ones who are taxed for living in that community, you are the ones who are charged, who pay the parking permits and all the things that occur throughout that community, you need to take control of that community.
Sounds like a very grandiose suggestion, I'm going to say.
We're going to do part 2 of this tomorrow because I see you getting a little tired. We'll do part 2 tomorrow.
You still record?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll do part 2 tomorrow.
No, I just got 2 hours of sleep. Nah, but I like this, and we didn't even finish all the questions.
I know. We'll stop. We're going to finish part 2 tomorrow. We're going to finish tomorrow.
This is nice.